As I idled around the bay studying the electronics first thing in the morning, I took note that the heaviest concentrations of fish were within 4 or 5 feet of the bottom in 15 to 20 feet of water. Still, with gray skies and an intermittent drizzle, I started the day throwing a topwater lure. I opted for a noisy storm arashi topwalker rather than my usual unweighted soft bait, hoping that the splash and rattle would help the fish find my lure after drawing them up from 15 feet or so. Scratching the cheek. Arashi walker. The fish proved to be pretty willing to come up for the lure, but as the morning wore on, it did seem that I was getting way more misses and short strikes than I'd like. Surface blow-ups are always fun, but they are a lot more fun when they actually result in a hookup. Despite most of the fish I was marking being in 15 feet or more of water, I still made the occasional cast onto the adjacent 5 to 8 foot deep rock flat just to keep them honest. After a couple hits and a fish or two on those exploratory casts, I adjusted my path and position to concentrate on the flat and switched from the plug to a 7-inch unweighted finesse fish, which is typically more sure hooking than the hard bait, and also makes it a whole lot easier to get the hook out of the fish and the fish back in the water. Another benefit of going with the soft bait on a single hook is that when they do take a swipe and miss it, they almost always come back and try again, and they'll usually keep doing it until they get hooked. This one appears to have gotten itself wrapped in what I suspect is the only clump of kelp on the whole flat. Easing up a bit on the pressure allowed it to swim out of the kelp. Work. It's kind of torn up, but we'll give it a shot. Plenty more fish off this pattern before the falling tide changed things up on me, but you get the picture. With the tide halfway out now, the current seems really showed on the surface and gave me a likely casting target. Throwing a smaller plastic bait on a light jig head quickly proved that there were still plenty of fish on that stretch. Even if some of them were a bit smaller, they still put up a respectable tussle, especially on my light freshwater spinning rod with 10-pound braid and an 8-pound Seaguar leader. one may not be any bigger, but he sure thinks he is. When the jig bite on that current seam faded, I let the birds lead me to another area of feeding fish. The light jig and small bait wasn't getting bit here, but switching to a similar lure rigged weightless turned the trick. After a few okay-sized schoolies, that area seemed to turn into Runt City. I took advantage of the fast bite for a few more minutes, but soon felt the need to go find something a little more substantial. When the cloud cover started breaking up, the fishing got a lot tougher, but before long, enough of a breeze to put something between a ripple and a chop on the surface and help break up the direct light penetration developed. The surface bite soon picked up accordingly, and I went back to the flat I'd done so well on early and found them more than willing to hit that unweighted finesse fish again.